You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your host, Marina Buksov, and I'm a functional medicine pharmacist in New York. I'm also a clinical herbalist and an integrative health coach specializing in mindfulness and empowerment. I'm on a mission to transform the way we approach healthcare by bridging the wisdom of traditional medicine with modern practice. And in this podcast, I will be highlighting guests who do just that. I'm constantly inspired by them, and I know you will be as well. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I have a very special guest today, as I usually do, and her name is Beena Patel. She's the founder of the Yoga Movement and a licensed physician associate. She's also a yoga teacher, Reiki healer, and health coach. With clinical training from top academic institutions such as Columbia University Medical Center and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, she blends modern medicine with ancient wisdom to help high-achieving women and organizations shift from burnout to deep alignment. Through her transformative coaching and healing work, Beena empowers clients to reclaim their health, purpose, and legacy, bridging science and soul for lifelong impact. So without further ado, Beena, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Marina. It's such an honor to be here.
Yeah, likewise. I was so impressed when I saw your website, and I just felt all the love that you were pouring in, and also deeply touched by your personal healing journey. So I'd love to ask you, how did that all begin? Where did it all start?
Yeah, thank you so much also for that lovely way of just bringing someone onto the show. I really appreciate it, or to your podcast. So at 21, which was over a decade ago now, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and it actually happened right after I graduated from college. And so, you're at the peak of your life thinking like you're walking into your prime years, like you're about to go into grad school. I was actually going into grad school to become a physician assistant. And so all these exciting things are happening. And then it's like first semester anatomy and physiology. And then it's like, oh, wait, but you're diagnosed too. And it's like, everything is kind of pausing. And at that time, it wasn't just the diagnosis. It was a series of other things happening too, such as being in a narcissistic, abusive, toxic relationship, and noticing the competitiveness in the program where it's like you couldn't really trust anyone in the program because everyone's trying to outwin other people. It didn't really feel that supportive. There were definitely some supportive people, but for the most part, it's like, each semester goes, the school lets you know that there's going to be some students that are no longer there as part of the journey. So all these stressors are coming my way. And, in that moment, it's like you're trying to hold it on together. And I was that type of person, feeling like I'm the one that people lean on for support, not the other way around, that I would need to ask for it. And so in that moment, it's kind of like you can't really bypass that. And I felt like I was just being, I wouldn't say crushed. The only parts I felt crushed was when I was resisting. It felt more of like this softening. It's like, just let all this go and just be in the moment and see what it's trying to teach you. But I know this now. You don't know this when you're going through it. When you're going through, you're like, what's happening, And so fast forward 2 months shy of graduation in that program, I actually was also, there was a theme of abusive dynamics. And so I had this rotation, interestingly, which had to do with women's health, which is actually why I went into medicine. I was really passionate about women's health and helping underprivileged populations. And so I'm in this rotation. I'm really excited. I think this is going to be my favorite rotation. And instead, me and the preceptor, for many reasons, just didn't get along. And I was afraid to speak my truth, which is interesting because I had thyroid cancer, which is in the area of the throat chakra. And no matter how many times this woman would just do things like, I was pushed into the wall one day, like things that I talk about now, like so freely because I've healed through it. But at the time, I'm like, wow, like why wouldn't I have spoken up? And it's because there was trauma around the throat and speaking my truth and just saying things as they are authentically. And so what happened was she actually reported what was happening to the school from her lens. I didn't get to speak or say anything. And within a few months, that school said, we don't think that you have what it takes to become a physician assistant. And so I was dismissed 2 months shy of graduation. And even being in the appeal process, I'm listening to the people speaking and they're like, her GP is completely fine. Like, what's going on? They're speaking out loud. And I'm like, yeah, I know this is part of my story. I know this is not fair. I know this is not just, but I just knew, like, I had this sense in me that this is going to be part of my story one day. I know this is part of what I'm here to do. And so I end up going to Costa Rica. And it's like a month later, my friend has her own challenge. Her mother had passed away to cancer. And she was like, we're going to Costa Rica. And it's me and all of her high school friends. And part of me was like, why would I go to this? Like, I don't even know anyone here. But I went and it was just this beautiful healing for my soul. That's what happens when we're in nature, when we're in the natural elements. You do this work, so And when you're in nature, she just holds you. I was in my 20s. That's not why I came to Costa Rica. I came to drink and like party and all those things, right? But it's like she's holding me. And when I come back, I just feel like this burst of energy. And it's like, you're applying back to PA school. You are going to do this. There's going to be more, but this is where we're starting. And I fell in love a week later. All these things are starting to open up to me. I'm hearing about yoga and all these other different modalities. And so fast forward, I do end up becoming a physician assistant. I only work at the top cancer institution in New York City, Columbia, Memorial Sloan, Weill Cornell. And it wasn't like I felt like I had to. It's more of a soul calling. Like, we're going to learn from the top academics because they're the ones who are so passionate about what they're doing. And then we're also going to learn that there's things like integrative medicine, which literally came to me in my first role. I worked at Columbia and I got to know the chaplain. I saw him bring, the Tibetan bowls. I saw him wear like a certain outfit every day. And I knew why he was doing it. He was wearing black to not take on other people's energies, but more to shield himself as he was doing his work. And he would say, Beena, do you want to come into the room? And one by one, the path was kind of leading and opening itself up. And my only job was to follow. And so what led me onto the path of holistic healing eventually and going really fast forward into it was I got my dream role at a dream institution. It's like the top cancer institution. I loved my time there. However, I'm noticing that a lot of people there didn't actually want to be there, as in like coworkers. They're just miserable, can't hold their emotions. And this is a problem not just in hospitals, but in a lot of the world where we're not just feeding off of the emotions of other people without honoring our sovereignty and our boundaries. We're also taking on things from other people we work with, our clients, people in the world. So it's like we have to understand how to honor emotional intelligence and how to operate in the world, both as an individual unit as well as a collective unit, without the messy gunk of codependency and narcissism and all these things. And so in that time, I was really questioning my role there. And my manager really loved working with me and had heard good things about me from evaluations. That's how it works in the institutions. So she said, if you really don't want to be in this department, we can open up a role for you in any department you want to be in. So I had best of both worlds at that point. However, as the universe will reroute us, God, source, whatever you want to call it, I literally go to one of my favorite shops to just decompress. And I'm like, this meeting went so well. My life is coming together after months of wondering what's going to happen. And this woman goes, she just ends up talking to me, the clerk, and we end up talking for an hour. And she goes, you are meant to do holistic healing and you are meant to be an entrepreneur. She goes, your face just lights up when you talk about yoga and Reiki and all these other things. She goes, this is your path. And after that day, everything just kind of unfolded itself. And the yoga movement was birthed within that month. And here we are today.
Wow. What a powerful story that you've been weaving together. And I have to say, you've become a great speaker. I don't know what you sounded like before when you mentioned that you had trouble speaking out and standing up for yourself, but it certainly seems like that has been transformative for you, that whole process. And it sounds like you were able to kind of take a step back and observe yourself in those moments of strife and challenge and still understand that there is a way through and looking for that path through and looking for ways to overcome the challenge instead of like, sometimes it's so difficult and people end up succumbing to depression and rumination and worry and all of these things that, because we don't know what to do. We don't know what the right path is. So what you mentioned about surrendering and trusting, that really is aligned to some of the deepest religious and spiritual teachings. And also when you wove in the stories about how they too intersect with the way that they dress and the way that the tools that they use, right? Because it's all the same language, the spiritual healing or religious healing. It's just that we separate them in our modern world, but it really is very, very similar in how we approach it. So I think focusing on what is the same and similar can be so healing in today's world, because we're just seeing and witnessing so much difference and so much controversy all the time, and we're exposed to it on a daily basis. So I think this is one of the key messages that I'm proposing, that we try to focus on what is in common and what's the common goal, and how can we get along just a little bit better and understand each other just a little bit better. And like speaking your message has a lot to do with that, so that you can be understood and witnessed. So again, just truly, truly amazing to hear that growth that you experienced. And I also want to say it's quite similar in a way and parallel to my own journey, because all of what I'm about now has also started to coalesce at around the time that I graduated pharmacy school. And I had my own health challenges at that point. I also had a relationship that I broke off after 6.5 years, after a lot of realizations about that path. And I had to come to my own way of surrendering as well through that. And there was a lot of resistance, I have to say, for my path. There a lot of resistance to that surrendering process. And, I'm still on the journey, but this is how it goes, right? It's either you lean into it and you relax into it, or you just fight it. But the end result is, which way is kind of the easier way, which way is the way of grace and flow, because sometimes the result is not the point. The point is the journey itself, and how hard are we making it for ourselves, or how much harder are we making it for ourselves by bringing in the positivity and the fear. The negativity and the fear. So yeah, Beena, tell us more about how you grew up, where you grew up, how you got to practice in New York City. I'm based in New York City too, and how you're now based in Costa Rica.
Yeah. So how I came to Costa Rica now, I actually want to go back to the New York City piece, because New York City was actually my dream city. And I still go back when I'm traveling back and forth, like I have to be in that city. So when I came to Costa Rica in 2012, this was after everything went down. And just for the record, I resisted a lot too. There was a lot of resistance because, in every single change in life, every single transformation we go through, I feel that it takes a true master to learn. And this is just like you said it beautifully. It's not necessarily the destination, it's the journey. You don't just say, hey, I'm transforming, and then it's done. Part of the transformation is honoring that you're about to dissolve, like you're going to dissolve. And in that dissolving, something new is going to emerge, but it's not actually new. It's just more of who you are. So I love the way that you said that. And I just want to echo that. So after I came back from Costa Rica, I just went to New York one day. And again, it's like the throat chakra is all about communication, and not just any communication, authentic self-expression. And it can come through writing, through speaking, chanting. There's many different ways. And so one of the ways that my throat chakra got opened up after that trip to Costa Rica is I started writing things that I just never really allowed myself to be seen in before. And there was a lot of different, what I like to call cosmic codes, like coming through. I was starting to write about the cosmos, really, like the divine, the cosmos, we're all interconnected, all these different things. And a part of me at first was very shy to show my work. I think it was a WordPress or a live journal. And then I put the link in my Gmail, but I wouldn't share it with people openly. Like if you found it, you found it, but otherwise I wouldn't tell people. And as I'm rereading some of those entries, I'm like, that wasn't just me. That was something moving through me. That was divinity coming through. Because as we clear out some of those limiting beliefs and stories, like, oh, I have to live in the States. I have to be here because this is where my family wants to be. This is where I'm meant to be. Then that energy can naturally flow through us. And so I went to New York City. It was my dream city. I dreamed about it all of college. For college, I was in Philadelphia. So I go to New York, and one day I'm just walking aimlessly. I didn't have any agenda. I was like, I'm just going to walk aimlessly and just see where the city takes me. And I went to this busy street. I think it was like Park Avenue. And I'm sitting on this bench, and I take out my journal that one of my friends gifted me for graduation. And I just start writing all my intentions. And Marina, I kid you not, every single one of those intentions came true, even in the time that I wanted to. The only things that I didn't see happen within a few years after that were the ones I did not write down because I was too afraid to put my desire on paper. So it's like a part of me already knew that when you put it on paper, something, the energy is starting to move. Like, it's not just you putting out there. The universe, cosmos, it's just like you said, whatever you believe in, this interconnectedness is starting to move and flow through us. And so one of my dreams was to move into the city by the time I was 30. And so I had been traveling in and out and living like a little bit out of the city, which I enjoyed too. But 4 months before I turned 30, I landed my dream job. I started it, and then I moved into the city, Upper East Side. I loved that apartment, 85th and 2nd, right next to this beautiful restaurant that I still go to sometimes. It's this beautiful Italian restaurant. And so all these things are starting to shift. And as they're shifting, I'm realizing, okay, it's not just I'm dreaming about this. I'm actually able to co-create the reality that I want. And one thing led to another. Obviously, the world went through the lockdown 2020, which was there was a lot of challenges for those of us in healthcare. And that year alone was almost like the soul was preparing for something. I could feel it, but I didn't know what. And again, I found myself in another relationship, which this time was long distance, and repeating this pattern of emotional unavailability. And I'm not seeing it. You don't see it until you're in it, right? Unless you're awakened and you've done the work and you've healed, like you don't really see it. And that was part of my journey, and I honor that. So all these things are happening. And by the time August 2020 comes, I just know that I'm not meant to be in the city anymore. Like, I've learned what I need to learn. I've worked in the different institutions. I enjoyed my experience. I made some really incredible connections that I'm still close to this day. And I know that I've received everything I needed from the scientific point, at least from the standpoint of like a foundation. Like, I understand what the academics are looking for. I understand community centers, all these different things. And I moved back home for like a year, and that year I learned a lot about childhood wounding and how I'm still tiptoeing around what my true purpose is. I ended up going into another role as a medical science liaison, working as a consultant for a biotech company. And this company actually opened up something in me, because a lot of times we have judgments with pharma and we're like, oh, they just want money, they want this. And I have to share my story. I felt like I was meant to see this. I actually worked with a lot of people who wanted to understand the root cause. They shared it, and I felt really at home with these people. I felt like they were my soul family. And I'm like, this is interesting because this goes against everything I heard and everything I was so adamant about. And so I'm not saying this is the general rule that this is how people are, but it's just like you said, like if we like soften ourselves and understand there's still this piece of interconnectedness. It's like there's good people who actually share a lot of these intrinsic values for humanity and for the greater good of humanity. In any place, you in jails, you could find it anywhere. So that experience was an awakening moment for me. And then I had what I can only call the dark night of the soul. Even though I've had many different awakenings, this was like a full stripping. Like, the relationship had ended. I realized that I can't just keep doing this and just going in between my purpose and here. I have to go into what I'm here to do. I know that cancer patients are experiencing more than the diagnosis. They're going through divorces. They're going through their own financial issues and trouble. It's like there's something deeper here. And at the same time I'm understanding this, I'm starting to teach yoga a lot more. And I just feel this soul calling. And so I go to Sedona, go to a retreat, and I literally just set the intention. And we know Sedona is a spiritual vortex. Any place that has heavy spiritual energy is like your intentions are being amplified. You could do this anywhere, but places, vortices around the world where the energy is amplified, it's like it adds something to it. It adds a spiritual component. And what it's doing, it's not like adding anything into us. It's just unlocking what's already inside of us. And so the practitioner I was working with, he goes, you are a healer, you're a teacher. He goes, you can label all these other things, but at the core essence, that's what you're here to do. And literally 6 months after the letter that I wrote to myself in that retreat, they mailed it to me, and things that I wrote to myself were already happening. And so I realized at this point, it's just like you said, we have resistance, but usually when we have that much resistance, it's our soul telling us, our spirit, it's time to let go. Like there's something on the other side of this. On the other side of this, it's time for us to let go so we can actually allow that to unfold and see what could come of it. And so one thing transpired after the other. And then I went to a retreat in Italy. I learned about the medicine of cacao. And when I came back home, just at this point, things are just starting to unravel. And I've been here so many times that I'm like, there's just no point of me resisting. I'm going to let life unfold. And so by the time 2023 comes, I am in this beautiful space of serenity. I don't want to be bothered by anyone. I tell people that I love, like, this month is about me. I'm starting off the year being more intentional and conscious to see what is next, what's unfolding. Even in a place as busy as the United States, like, we can still slow ourselves down. And in that month, I just kept hearing, you're moving to Costa Rica. Like in my meditation, even as I'm typing emails, like I was so in it that I could just hear it. And for the next year, I just hear about Costa Rica everywhere I go. I know there's an element of, if we think about something enough, we could put it out there. I'm talking about in the most bizarre places that even my family's onto it, because they don't really like the idea of me moving. And they're noticing little things too. And I'm like, yeah, when you're being called, you're being called. And so I moved in 2024, just through a sequence of events that unfolded. And one thing led to another. It was never like, oh, you're moving for the whole year. It was just like, okay, let's try 1 week. 1 week ended up being a month. It ended up being a couple months. And now it's been like, yeah, this is my soul's home. And this is the happiest I have ever been.
Wow. I mean, that is just such a beautiful story. Once again, I have to say, the resistance and the challenge, right? Like that theme that we're talking about, that often is the way, like you said. You know, the automatic reaction and the habit of most people is avoid it, right? Or like, this is a bad thing, you know, and judgment about it. And that's not really possible, right? To avoid all challenges that are possible out there. So we're limiting a lot of our potential that way when we just try to avoid it as a strategy, right? Or other strategies that we may have. The thing is, sometimes it's inevitable. So the way out, like we've been saying, is through. So by allowing yourself to surrender and lean into it, again, sometimes then you see different potential solutions that you didn't see before because you were all contracted and in this fear state and this vigilant state. And you know, it just sounds so beautiful, like what you're sharing about manifestation, right? And I have to say, I have similar stories too, that I would write something down or go to like a workshop or a ceremony, you know, or read about something and then try it out. And sometimes things would happen faster than I thought, you know, on my timeline. Sometimes the most important things to me happen actually first, even though it wasn't, again, a priority at the time. So that's what I noticed for myself, like the truest, most authentic things do end up coming through. So whichever path aligns to you, whichever modality or method, doesn't really matter. You know, there's a ton, like you said. It's just choosing something that resonates with you and leaning more into it and really allowing yourself that exploration, which sounds like you have done. And on the theme of surrender as well, just surrendering, right? And listening to your own voice and to your own intuition and following that, even if people around you are against it, even people you love, you know, and just allowing yourself to listen to yourself, your heart, your soul, whatever you want to call it, rather than everybody around you, because they're not you, right? They're not you. You have your own individual soul and your body. And so that's the scary thing and also the beautiful thing, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that wisdom with us. And I want to go back a little bit to your healing journey, because that is a very scary diagnosis to get at any point in your life. But like you said, especially like at a point when you're young and everything is ahead of you, and you thought you had everything figured out. So how did you deal with it at the time? And I'm sure, looking back at it now, you have a lot of different tools that you could lean on, but at the time, what was your approach and how was your healing journey as you were building your career?
Yeah. So when I was going through it, it's going back to what you said. Like when you're in it, there is resistance. And something that I noticed, I've actually been pretty vocal about this, is noticing that, I noticed I was passed off quite a bit by certain clinicians. And I think it was partly because of being a woman, also a woman of color. Like I've worked with healthcare equity and, disparities, looking at things like this. We can't deny it, right? Like it's run through this programming in society. And it was very outward. It wasn't like being passed off, like you feel like subtle things. It was just like, yeah, I mean, like just feeling like you're not being heard. It was so like, sometimes I think about it, I'm like, it's so interesting. And also noticing that some of my appointments, a lot of them actually, I went by myself. It's not because my family didn't support me. I almost felt like I was meant to see some things, just like what would it look like for a woman of color to just walk in with this diagnosis young, who's not typically at the age where you would see a woman typically in power. I'm not saying that there can't be 21-year-olds in power. Times are changing drastically now. But at that time, you're still wobbly in your confidence because it's like you just shifted out of your teenage years into young adulthood and you're still figuring out who you are and who you're meant to be in this world. And so I'm noticing these things, noticing feeling unheard, unseen, which these things can also be related to the throat chakra that I didn't know at that time. And so even though I didn't see at that time, I actually had the courage to at least walk away from one of the physicians and be like, I want to see someone else who can actually listen to me. And that next physician was very attentive. There have been some changes because I learned, and I'm sure you know this too, that we can doctor shop. It's about using our intuition, discernment, and understanding who's best for our care too. And so even then, came to Costa Rica, went back, and Costa Rica, obviously, I feel like it's coming through. This is a very sacred land. Like the part that I'm in currently, it's part of one of the blue zones. And some people will say there's no real evidence behind that, but I can share with you, our environments matter. And when I say that this is my soul's home, there's just been so many beautiful things unfolding for me. So it's one of the underrated aspects of holistic health, knowing that certain places in the world actually expand our souls in beautiful ways and hold space for that transformation. So came back from Costa Rica, and even though I felt full of life and full of vitality again, I was in this new relationship and I noticed that even though this person treated me really well, he was my first love and he treated me to the best that he could, I still felt this sense of I can't really speak to my full truth. Or whenever I do speak to my emotions and give a voice to my emotions, I was being told things like, oh, that doesn't matter right now. We don't need to speak to that right now. And a year later, or like roughly a year later, I actually had a recurrence of the cancer. And so your question, going back to your question, it's like, how did you navigate that? A lot of it was really not really knowing from the logical mind, but following the heart. Like something is happening here that I don't fully know yet, but I know this is part of the journey. And so when you don't learn the lesson, it keeps repeating itself. And fast forward, I end up going back to PA school. 6 months later, I got accepted into another program in my dream city, in New York. And while I'm in New York, all these things are being uncovered for me, like my love for music, going to concerts, art, all these things. And I'm noticing that even the roommates I lived with at that time, there was a lot of hostility, a lot of bullying, and I wasn't perfect either. However, I just knew this environment is unsafe. And I feel that this has been a theme, like what's happening. So when I went through the dark night of the soul and I'm in Sedona, I felt that one thing I was learning is that yoga is really beautiful. And I had been doing yoga. I became a yoga teacher. It's really powerful for balancing the different chakras, our nadis, our different energy centers. However, sometimes the nervous system can get acclimated to a certain practice. So it's nice to also branch out and become versatile, whether it's breath work, meditation, doing other things, energy healing, shamanism, the work that you do, working with different plants and understanding the natural elements of our planet that are available to us, right? So all these things are being slowly available or coming into my awareness throughout time. I think that was part of the journey. And I would say the biggest thing that has shifted for me, that has been happening, I would say within the last year, is this land, because it is helping me heal my soul, it will bring you the right people and opportunities that are going to help you look at your shadow so that you can transmute it into light and expand into more of who you are here to be. And what I notice is that there's a bit an element of narcissism all around the planet. Like, this has been long known. And I don't want to say like, oh, it's in everyone else. Like, there's also things like narcissistic traits in each and every one of us, as in things, you know, there could be subtle things, there could be bigger things, but things like self-importance, arrogance, or like me, it's all about me. Like this journey of self-love, which I love speaking to, can have a fine line between what is self-love versus self-absorption, right? Or self-entitlement. And on the other spectrum, there's full-on narcissism. And while I'm not a mental health practitioner and don't want to speak to that, like, you know, I know all the ins and outs of that. Given my lived experience, what I can speak to is I realized the power of boundaries. And I had to, you think, Beena, like, you know this, you just say no. Well, the thing is, when you've had generations, ancestors, like my paternal grandmother had throat cancer. And this is the irony, Maureen, the irony is that a lot of people didn't even know until she passed away. She didn't even tell a lot of people. You want to talk about throat cancer that is so metaphorical for a throat that is blocked? Like, you cannot make this stuff up. And so when I started doing ancestral healing, getting into it, I would speak to my dad, like, what was her life like being married to your dad? Like, what was it like? And he goes, she couldn't really speak much. Once she got married to his dad, like my grandfather, she had to follow whatever their rules for it. It was part of the culture. So whatever their rules were, she had to go. She would, like, you know, drape herself differently. She would look down on the floor, be very submissive. And that's not the truth of who anyone should be, woman or man, child, no one, no animal, no plant. And so as I'm learning all these different things, and this idea of narcissism is really coming up, I realized the more that I was clearing this energy, even the ancestral wounds, I was starting to say no more unapologetically, rather than feeling guilt around it after, going back and cleaning up and explaining and over-explaining and people-pleasing. It's like, no. It's like, it's okay. It's okay to say no. If I'm honoring myself, I'm actually helping someone else too, even if they don't like it in the process, because the reality is, it's just like what you said. We are having our own human experience, and our souls are on their own journey too. And I actually can't please anyone. I can't make anyone else happy. I can only make myself happy. And while that sounds selfish, the reality is there is a part of selfishness to us all. And it's also being self-full, like it's self-care, it's self-love, it's self-confidence, it's self-awareness, it's putting all this self-mastery together. And so as I learned that there's power in having healthy boundaries, there's power in saying no, even through the discomfort. It wasn't always like, oh yeah, no. It was like, no, you know, like dim, like no, like, you know, because all this like people pleasing. And then slowly you honor your journey with acceptance and with the love. It's like you're transmuting it. And then eventually you learn to walk away. And as you learn to walk away from all the bits that aren't you, that aren't your authentic expression and authentic parts of you, you come back more to the wholeness that you already are. And as you continue to do that, you reclaim your health and your well-being. Like, that's really what it is. Like, I thank you for the comment that you shared about speaking, because over a decade ago, any type of speaking gave me so much anxiety and fear. Of course, like, it makes sense. And then as you do this work, you realize that you speaking and standing in your truth is you literally just taking a stand in your divinity. Like, this is your birthright. This is a birthright for everyone on this planet. And so I'm able to see that, yes, I take thyroid supplementation, and I'm not just science and biology, I'm also spirit and soul. And what feeds that part of me is by looking at my energy and cleansing all these other patterns and wounding around not being able to speak our truth. And as we do that, as we let go of these abusive dynamics, which can even be us abusing ourselves, not speaking our truth, silencing ourselves, not saying the things that we want to say. And as we start to come online and let ourselves move through the discomfort, holding ourselves like we would a child, like, you move through on the other side, and it's like, okay, this voice, this is who I really am.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 11:11 as we're recording this, actually. So that's pretty neat. Yeah. And that just ties into that theme we were talking about surrender, and also building your self-trust by listening to those whispers before they have to get loud, right? Like you said, the lesson will keep on repeating itself. So when you notice those patterns, it is up to you to take control. And that is how you build the trust and the intuition, is by listening to it and seeing what happens and following that curiosity, like we talked about. And I do want to speak to like the selfishness and the narcissism. Like, I I feel like that word is so popular now, especially when we talk about relationships. And it's true. It's something that we really have to be careful with and pick up on. But also, I feel like it's not a cause. Like, people don't just like get born as a narcissist, or they don't just like wake up one day and say, you know what, I want to be a narcissist because, I think that will really serve me. I think it's more like a response, right? It's a result of things and trauma that they have had. And so they feel like this is the only way that they can get love and receive love, is if they act in that certain way or pattern. So, I do try to look at that with grace, and also like looking at the physical experience and the human experience, like you were saying, we have a lot of extractive patterns in general in the patriarchy and capitalism, right? So it's up to us to kind of unwind and try to not participate in that, but it does come with a level of awareness for us to be able to pick up again on those patterns and then choose different patterns or try to cultivate better habits. And that is definitely easier said than done, because we're just, again, so entwined in the system that has been built. But I do also through the healthcare system, because I have had similar experiences where either, people would dismiss me, or they would, try to bring out all the big guns all at once. And it is pretty traumatic, because I felt like I couldn't trust them, and I couldn't even trust my own judgment with receiving the kind of care that I really wished for. And it wasn't really available to me. And I felt like, okay, I have no other options. I have to choose something from these bad options that have been put in front of me. And I've also had the experiences where I wasn't warned of potential negative side effects, and then they happened. So I just felt, again, traumatized by that. And I also want to share, my sister was diagnosed with like a cancer, not a cancerous, but they thought it might be cancer, a nodule in her thyroid. And so they acted kind of very quick and cut everything out. And I think they might have actually cut a portion out, not the whole thing. But she still does have to supplement, and the biopsy showed negative, so it kind of just goes to show you that we sometimes just, are so afraid that something bad is part of the diagnosis that we make a decision and then you can't take it back, right? So such a scary thing to navigate when you're diagnosed with something very, very challenging. And I'm wondering if you can speak now, like, now that the experiences are mostly behind you, what would you advise somebody about approaching such a diagnosis that sounds just, so scary, and also that you have to make a decision right now?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. So looking back, this is what I would say. What actually comes up for me? What comes up for me is remembering that there was so much. I remember the doctor that I was seeing at the time. He was just this beautiful blue eyes, so calm. He was a surgeon. Most times you think of the surgeon, you're thinking of like this big, our judgments, our generalization, but he was the softest, pure-hearted, loving man. And I remember him saying, Beena, like, it's malignant. We have to take it out, all these things. And there was, when it finally hit me, at first I was in denial. So when it finally hit me, I just couldn't stop crying. And I knew I had to go through with the surgery. And there was a part of me that knew, like, you are going to go through with your surgery. However, I had a lot of fear around it, also fear around what could happen after, because the thyroid also, it's responsible for metabolism, also other hormones too. It's not just thyroid level, like all our hormones are impacting one another. And so things like, I know this sounds really superficial, but I was doing freelance modeling at the time. And one of the questions that kept coming up is, will I be able to manage my weight? And when you look at the internet, you're only going to see horror stories. So I felt so much resistance. Marina, you really took me back to that place. And so I remember one of the things that's coming up for me is that after they removed everything, it's interesting because with all the fear, they do the staging, and it was stage 0. This is the first time I've ever shared that publicly. And I just remember thinking, why all this fear? And like afterwards, they didn't have enough research at that time, but I remember thinking, like, does it have to be removed? Is there no other way? And I used to question. I questioned a lot of doctors. A lot of doctors weren't expecting questions from a younger woman, I think, but I would just question it. Because, women, we're very intuitive. Everyone's intuitive, but women, we're even more enhanced. We're like direct channels. And I remember even when I had the recurrence, I was asking about radioactive iodine, like what are the negative side effects, all these things. They just kept denying it. And obviously we find out different things years after. And so this is what I would recommend. Both as a clinician and as a healer, as a holistic health coach, doing the things I do now, empowering patients also, is first of all, do your own research. However, when you do your research, make sure it is evidence-based medicine, not the internet, not Reddit, go to evidence-based clinicians, evidence-based practitioners. Also, even working with healers and trying to understand what's best for you, work with healers that are really empowered in what they do. There's a journey that everyone goes through. I truly feel there's a healer within each and every one of us, and it's part of our journey. However, in moving from wounded healer to empowered healer, that is the journey. And it's true that sometimes we do share our medicine even before we've gotten to the other side. It doesn't mean this is a journey of perfectionism. However, I feel that integrity is really one of my big core values. And without understanding some of the science and biology, even doing this energy work, like I'm still learning the science of it. It still is related to science, right? So do we need to know the hardcore science of everything? I personally don't believe that. However, I think that the more that we understand both aspects, logical and intuitive, we're actually putting all the pieces together in a very holistic, balanced way. So why would we not want to do that? And then above all, listen to your intuition. I think a lot of times when we are just outsourcing, what do you think? What do you think? We lose our own capability of trusting ourselves. We start to question ourselves. And then if you're questioning yourself, you're questioning the world. Like it works like that. And so the way to honor that, like people constantly ask me, how do you learn to trust yourself? And it's like, I can't answer that for you. That is your journey to learn. That's why you're asking, because you don't trust yourself yet. And every time you lean into trusting a little bit more and more, that's how you build the muscle of intuition and using discernment. And anytime that you feel wobbly, I invite in personally, I'm a woman of faith. I invite in prayer. I pray. I say, God, lead me to the right person who's actually going to help me make the most empowered decision so we can collaborate. I'm not always like on my A game, like, yeah, I've got it, right? Like we're wobbly. When you're going through the experience, it's not easy to just tap into your intuition. It's like what's happening? Like all these things come up. And in that moment, if you are held by the right person, whether it's a master healer, a really experienced clinician who has your best interest at heart and they see the light and love in you, then you will receive the tools that you need. I don't regret having my surgery or any of the treatment. Let me say that, because for the record, I still remember to this day, the surgeon, I'm like already getting a little woozy with the anesthesia and we're about to go into surgery. And the resident is poking my hand to get the IV in and he doesn't exactly know what he's doing. So it's bleeding and I'm noticing, but I'm also super kind. So I'm just letting him do his thing. And the other resident is like, don't worry, he's going to get it. I'm like, okay. And the surgeon comes and he makes sure everything is fine. He holds me. He just looks into me. He goes, Beena, you're safe. I'm like, we've got you. Everything is going to be fine. His voice is super soft. And I just felt such love. And before you know it, like you're in that moment and you're drifting off and your body and your soul is going through the transformation that it needs to for your journey. And so that's what I would recommend. And then there's organizations like Patient Empowerment Network. There's lots of, advocacy groups that are weaving together so many different people, different backgrounds, Eastern traditions, Western traditions. As you allow these different organizations to support you, you'll find the help that you need. Like I always feel that we are routed to the right support if we open ourselves up, and it's not something that we need to do alone. Like even this process of empowerment, there are moments where we don't feel so self-empowered. And that's when the right person can help us, remind us of who we are. They mirror that back to us. And so that's what I would say. That's what I've done for a lot of patients, a lot of clients. I feel that all of us are looking to be empowered and to be reminded that the power has always been within us.
Wow. Thank you so much for that message. I think it just tied everything that we were talking about together very, very neatly. And that is the journey back to self-trust, back to wholeness, back to sovereignty. And again, it doesn't mean you have to do it all alone. they say it takes a village to raise a child, right? And, we're all still children, right? None of us has really got it all figured out, even as an adult, like you said. So we still need that village as adults, especially as adults that are going through a challenging diagnosis or health issues. So thank you again for this wonderful podcast episode. I feel like I really got to know you and what you're about. And I'd love to wrap it up with a very quick rapid fire round if you're up for it.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. So number one, what's the number one advice you have for somebody to improve their quality of life right now?
Get to know yourself.
Awesome. Number two, what is your favorite food to cook or to make yourself or to enjoy? Maybe you go out and eat it.
I love pizza. I love really good, authentic Italian pizza.
You did say you went to Italy. I mean,
yeah.
I also watch my weight, but when I was in Italy, I was eating pizza and gelato and all the things every day. So I hear you.
You know DeFara's? Have you been to DeFara's in Brooklyn?
Yes.
That is one of my favorite restaurants. Yeah.
My high school was around there, but
wow.
I was really watching my weight in high school, but yes, I did frequent that one. Let's see. What is a fun fact about yourself or a favorite hobby of yours?
I love to dance. I think that's part of my yogic background, but like dancing in very sensual, fully self-expressed ways. Yeah.
Yes, somatic release of the hips. Yes, hips and the jaw, right? They're related, and the throat, all of what we were talking about. Amazing. Yeah, and this is why I was watching my weight too. I was never a model, but I was always a dancer. So
beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Beena, thank you again so much for this wonderful episode and sharing your wisdom. Please let our listeners know where they can learn more about you and how you might want to work with them.
Yeah. So I offer holistic health coaching. It's through my signature offer, Love Your Life. And for any information on that, you can go straight to my website. It's the Yoga Movement NYC for NewYorkCity.com. And also Instagram at the Yoga Movement. And yeah, I offer I'm actually going to be starting to offer retreats either late this year or next year. And probably in Costa Rica. So I'm really excited about that. But that's the easiest way to reach me. And all my contact information is on my website as well.
Amazing. Again, thank you so much. And I look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beena.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast, and I truly hope you enjoyed the show. If you learned something useful in this episode, please consider giving the show a 5-star rating and a sincere review so that more people can find it, or share it with a friend directly. To get in touch with me, you can find me on social media by looking up my name, Marina Buksov, or email me at marina@rawfork.com. Take good care and see you soon.